Alexander the Great, a name that has echoed through history for more than 2,000 years. A conqueror, a dreamer, a man who believed he was destined for greatness. By the age of 30, he had forged one of the largest empires the world had ever seen. Some saw him as a hero, others called him a tyrant. To his soldiers, he was a fearless leader who shared their hardships, eating the same food and sleeping on the same ground. To his enemies, he was an unstoppable storm that swept away kingdoms like dry leaves. Whether loved or hated, Alexander left a mark on history that can never be erased. His story is not just about battles, but about ambition, vision, and the price of eternal glory. Alexander was born in July 356 BC in the Macedonian capital of Pella. His father, King Philippi, was a brilliant general who transformed Macedonia from a weak kingdom into a military powerhouse. His mother, Olympias, fiery and ambitious, whispered to her son that he was destined for greatness. She claimed his bloodline went back to Achilles and even to gods themselves. Even as a boy, Alexander was different. While other children played games, he demanded answers. Why do men fight? Why do stars move across the night sky? Why do some achieve greatness while others fade into dust? His questions often startled his tutors, but they revealed a restless mind. The greatest influence on him came from his teacher, the philosopher Aristotle. Aristotle opened to him the world of philosophy, medicine, science, and literature. Under his guidance, Alexander learned to think like a statesman and a scholar, not just a warrior. But his heart was captured by Homer's Iliad. He carried a copy of it wherever he went and under his pillow on campaign. Achilles became his role model, a hero who sought eternal fame, even at the cost of life itself. From childhood, Alexander believed that greatness was not a choice, but his destiny. When he was 12, Alexander faced a challenge that revealed his spirit. A wild stallion was brought before his father. No one could ride it. The horse reared, screamed, and threw every rider. Soldiers mocked it, calling it worthless. But Alexander watched closely. He saw what others did not. The horse was terrified of its own shadow. Boldly, he stepped forward, turned the horse toward the sun, calmed it, and mounted. To everyone's shock, the beast obeyed. The crowd erupted. Philip, deeply moved, is said to have wept. He embraced his son and declared, "My boy, Macedonia is too small for you. You must find a kingdom worthy of you." That horse was Bucephalus. More than just a mount, he became Alexander's companion through every battle. When soldiers saw Alexander riding Bucephalus at the head of their charge, they believed victory was already theirs. In 336 BC, disaster struck. King Philippi was assassinated. At just 20 years old, Alexander suddenly found himself king. Many thought the kingdom would fall apart. Enemies whispered that he was too young, too reckless. But Alexander proved them wrong. He struck swiftly at his rivals. When the city of Thebes rebelled, he did not hesitate. He destroyed the city completely, sparing only temples and the house of the poet Pindar. The message was clear. Rebellion meant annihilation. Though harsh, this act secured Greece. Cities that once doubted him now bowed to him. Alexander became the leader of the Greek alliance. And with Greece united, he turned to the east to the Persian Empire, the richest and most powerful kingdom in the known world. In 330 for BC, Alexander led about 40,000 men across the Hellespont into Asia. Before stepping ashore, he ran to the legendary site of Troy and laid a wreath on the tomb of Achilles. He wanted the world to see him not only as a king, but as the heir to heroes. The Persian Empire stretched from the Mediterranean to India. Vast, wealthy, and terrifying, it was thought to be uncheckable. But Alexander believed it was ready to fall. At the Battle of the Granicus River, he led a reckless charge into the Persian cavalry. Arrows whistled around him, blades clashed, and at one moment, a Persian noble nearly struck him down. Yet his men rushed to protect him, and together they broke the enemy. The Persians were routed. Against all odds, Alexander had struck the first blow. The world began to whisper, perhaps this young Macedonian truly was invincible. In 333 BC, Alexander faced King Darius III himself at Issus. The Persian army dwarfed his. Tens of thousands more soldiers filled the valley. The Macedonians were exhausted from marching, but Alexander's fire lit their spirits. The battle began. Persians rained arrows and pressed forward with overwhelming force. Yet Alexander, calm under chaos, rode with his companion cavalry in a wedge formation, striking directly at the Persian center. As the lines clashed, chaos spread. And then, history repeated itself. Darius lost his courage. Fearing capture or death, he abandoned his army, his treasure, even his family, and fled the battlefield. The Persians broke. The Macedonians triumphed. For Alexander, it was not only victory, it was the moment the world realized that he was unstoppable. After Issus, Alexander marched into Egypt. Unlike the Persians, the Egyptians welcomed him as a liberator. To them, he was the bringer of freedom, not conquest. In the oasis of Siwa, priests declared him the son of the god Amen. To his men, it was another sign of destiny. Alexander embraced it. If the gods wanted him to rule the world, who could stand in his way? He founded Alexandria, a city that became a jewel of the ancient world. Its lighthouse guided sailors, its library collected knowledge from across the earth, and its markets thrived with trade. Even today, Alexandria bears his name, a living reminder of his vision. In 331 BC, the plains of Gaugamela. King Darius gathered an army so vast, some said it numbered 500,000. War chariots with blades gleamed in the sun. Elephants roared, soldiers stretched beyond the horizon. Alexander faced him with 47,000. The difference was staggering. Yet numbers alone could not defeat genius. The Persians charged with their chariots. At the last moment, the Macedonians opened their lines, letting the chariots pass through and cut them down. The trap had failed. Then came Alexander's moment. With his companion cavalry, he formed a wedge and charged straight toward Darius himself. Dust filled the air, hooves thundered like drums of war. The Macedonians roared, and the Persian line cracked. Once again, Darius fled in panic. His soldiers lost heart. The Persian Empire collapsed that day. Alexander was no longer just king of Macedonia. He was the master of Asia. After Gaugamela, Alexander ruled lands stretching farther than any Greek had dreamed. From the Nile to the mountains of Persia, cities bowed before him. But Alexander wanted more than conquest. He dreamed of unity. He built over 70 cities, spreading Greek language, art, and science. Many bore his name, Alexandria. He encouraged his soldiers to marry Persian women. He himself married Roxana, a princess from the east. His vision was radical, one empire where East and West lived as one. Not all agreed. Some of his men grumbled, saying he was abandoning Greek ways. But Alexander believed he was creating something greater than any nation, a new world. Never satisfied, Alexander marched east into India. In 326 BC, he faced King Paras at the Hydaspes River. Paras brought war elephants, towering beasts clad in armor, tusks sharpened for battle. For men who had never seen elephants before, the sight was terrifying. The battle was brutal. Elephants crushed men beneath their feet, and their trumpets shook the air. Yet Alexander adapted, ordering his archers and cavalry to strike from the flanks. Slowly, the beasts were forced back. Paras fought bravely, towering over others on his elephant. Impressed by his courage, Alexander spared him and allowed him to remain king. It was a rare act of mercy, and it won him respect in India. But Alexander's army had reached its limit. After years of endless war, his men refused to march further. For the first time, Alexander had to turn back. On the journey back, Alexander never stopped dreaming. He spoke of Arabia, of Carthage, even Rome. To him, there were no limits. But in 323 BC, in Babylon, fate ended his march. He fell ill with a violent fever. For days he lay suffering, his body failing while his mind still burned with ambition. His generals asked, "To whom do you leave your empire?" According to legend, his final words were, "To the strongest." And then, at just 32, Alexander the Great was gone. After his death, his empire shattered. His generals, the Diadochi, tore it apart in wars of succession. But the dream did not die. Greek culture spread across the East, blending with local traditions to form the Hellenistic world. Science, philosophy, and art flourished in his cities. Alexandria became a beacon of learning, its libraries seeking to gather all human knowledge. His tactics are still studied by generals today. His name appears in every history of greatness. His life was short, but it burned brighter than most men's centuries. Alexander the Great lived only 32 years, but he changed the course of history forever. He was ruthless, ambitious, brilliant, and unstoppable. And even now, over 2,000 years later, his name is remembered. His legend remains,